So today's webinar is really going to be about building strong relationships. It's mostly kind of focusing on all sorts of types of relationships. It's not just a friendship that you might have, but it could be relationships with your parents. I know a lot of times as we're getting older and more into our teen years and whatnot, we get a little more independent, and so we might struggle sometimes with having to communicate with our parents or our teachers, coaches. Even when you get older and you might be employed someday, this is a great webinar to take with you into adulthood, to learn how to really effectively communicate and build a really good, strong relationship. So this isn't about saying please and thank you or anything like that with manners. This is more about kind of showing some respect when we're kind of meeting some folks and whatnot. So without further ado, I want to go on, but first, what I always like to do, I do this in my live lessons as well. If those that are in attendance, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to just bow your heads, and we're going to say a little prayer. I like to say a little prayer before we begin to get us going. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together today. I'm grateful for the chance to have our students learn and grow side by side with each other. Please bless each student here with kindness and patience and understanding as we build strong and lasting relationships with each other, with our friends, our parents, our siblings, and help us to support one another, to listen with open hearts and treat each other with love and respect. In your name I pray, amen. Okay, so let's go on with this webinar. I'm going to start off with just a story to tell you guys. So you guys just kind of sit back and enjoy the show for a little bit. And then we're going to go into maybe some discussions. What I like to do is have students answer in the chat. I'm not against people if they want to come off mic and share their thoughts as well. That's perfectly fine with me. We just make sure we want to be respectful for the rest of the audience, that we're not taking up too much time, or we're just being respectful with our answers. So just go ahead and let's just take a look at this story first. So I'm going to talk about an example of a college student, because you guys, maybe if that's your choice, one day you want to go on to college, this might be you someday, because this is an experience that a lot of college students go through. This is Paul, okay, and he's a freshman at college. That means he's a brand new student, never been to college before, and it's move-in day, okay, and he doesn't know anybody at this school. He's from out of state. He doesn't have even any friends from high school at this college. So he knows he needs to start fresh. And he knows he needs to make some new friends. Okay, so he's probably going to look into some clubs and things like that. But luckily for him, he was assigned some really good roommates. Okay, they all got along. They had some things in common. They liked football games and going out for pizza after class and forming some study groups, and everything was going great freshman year. It was going so well that by the time they got to sophomore year, they decided, you know what? I just love hanging out with you guys so much. Let's try and be roommates, but in an apartment off campus. And that's kind of common sometimes in college. It's freshmen, they meet some people and then they go become roommates with other college students. And so that, you know what, freshman year went so well, let's go sign a lease and find an apartment. And so they did. Okay, and they're having a great time. But this time, by the middle of the year, things kind of get a little weird between them. All right, something seems a little off when sophomore year is sort of coming to a close. And they all still hung out together. They went to football games and they still kind of went to social gatherings and whatnot. But by the end of the year, they just kind of started having some differences with each other. Paul kind of found that his roommates, as they became more comfortable around him, they used kind of some language he wasn't a big fan of. They're watching shows that he wasn't a big fan of, and he just wasn't comfortable around it. But he kind of kept silent, did his best to kind of not make waves or anything like that. But he also noticed his friend group, they were kind of distancing themselves as well. They weren't really talking to him anymore. He noticed they weren't really inviting him to some of these things, and he's kind of getting a little pushed out and isolated from his friend group. But he just didn't want to risk losing his friends by saying anything. He thought maybe this will just all go away. But by junior year, the roommates were starting to argue with each other more and more about their personality differences, some of their behaviors. They just weren't getting along. By the end of junior year, all of a sudden, Paul walked into his apartment and it was empty. His roommates had moved out without ever telling him what happened or why. He was crushed by this news, and he's all by himself. So senior year comes along. He's like, you know what? I don't need friends. I'm in my last year of college. I'm just going to focus on my studies. I'm just going to graduate and get through this all by myself. Okay. He convinced himself he just didn't need any friends. But he was actually lying to himself. Okay. His bravery just didn't last very long. All right. The isolation and the experience of losing his friends really crushed him. Okay. He found himself kind of sad and depressed. And he just didn't understand what he did wrong to lose his friends. And soon the anxiety of doubting himself began to affect his schoolwork. He just couldn't focus anymore. And he found himself failing his classes. Basically, Paul started to withdraw from socializing with anybody. He didn't have any confidence in himself anymore. And the anxiety and the depression was just too much for him. So he knew he had to call his parents. He knew to let them know that he was failing out of college. His classes weren't succeeding, and he wasn't going to be able to graduate on time. And fortunately for him, his parents met him with love and understanding. They told him, look, Paul, you do what you need to do. We're going to support you and make sure you get through your coursework and have the support you need. And that's when Paul confided in his parents. He finally told them after 4 years of saying, you know what, this is what happened to me. My friends just left me, and I just feel so sad and depressed. And so his parents convinced him, you know what, I'm so sorry this happened to you, but we're going to help you. All right. And so they had Paul go see a counselor, and Paul was able to talk through what was going on. All right. He actually was able, oops, hold on. I got something wrong with my slide here. Sorry. He basically was able to talk with this counselor. All right. And he learned new coping strategies and how to communicate effectively. All right. Because there's certain ways when you're communicating with people, how to make things so that they don't come off so harsh and things like that. Right. And so soon Paul found his confidence, and he's back and ready to hit the books. Before you know it, he graduated, not on time, but he graduated a semester later. But he was very happy with how things worked out, okay? He learned how to build some strong friendships, and he actually took those skills onto the workplace, and he established really good working relationships with his boss and his coworkers, and everything turned out okay, all right? But here's the thing. This is what I want to hear from you guys. Tell me in the chat, what do you think went wrong in this scenario? I mean, how did Paul go from having a great friend group as a freshman, but by the time he was a senior in college, things went really, really bad? What do you think happened there? And if you're not sure, I always tell my students in Monday class, if you're not sure, just give me a question mark. That's okay too. All right, that's good. All right, let's take a look at this, because there are no right or wrong answers. When I'm asking these questions of you guys, these are just opinions. There's no right or wrong answer ever. In any case, one thing, he didn't really pray. We didn't hear that part in the story. And Paul might have had a little more understanding or comfort had he remembered that he's not alone in this. And we'll talk about this towards the end of the presentation. But two, he didn't reach out to his parents soon enough. Your parents are actually there for you, whether you like it or not, all right? Whether you realize it or not. And they're always going to have your corner. And Paul probably could have reached out to his parents a little sooner, right? I think he was just trying to be brave about the situation, handle it on his own. Yeah, at the end of the day, we all have to realize we're not always in this alone. We need each other. The other thing Paul didn't do is he didn't practice healthy respect with each other. And that's what I really want to talk about today is the whole respect concept, okay? So we're going to learn more about this respect thing here. Building strong relationships using respect. And so we're going to go all throughout all these tenets of what we're talking about with respect. And you can apply these tenets to just about any type of relationship that you can think of, whether it's your friends or your parents, even a job that you have someday. If you plan on maybe running for a club president position or something like that, it's important to have effective communication and building a good relationship with your peers, right? So let's take a look at that. So the first one is R, okay? Recognize others' feelings, okay? The first step to respect is always to recognize how other people feel, okay? Imagine maybe you have a friend that's upset because they failed a test. Maybe instead of ignoring them or saying, it's no big deal, what could you say? Just tell me in the chat. I won't share it with the rest of the group, but just tell me in the chat what you think could have been said or could you say to a friend who's kind of bummed out right now that they just failed a test. I think we have some shy students here. I'll share with you guys. All right. You could say, I'm sorry that happened. Oh man, do you want to talk about it? Maybe I can help you study next time. Okay. Things like that is sort of recognizing someone's feelings. And when you recognize someone's feelings, it helps them feel understood, right? Maybe you've been in that same position. Okay. So the next one is encouragement. So encouragement, when you encourage someone, it is like giving them a big boost of energy when they need it, especially when they need it most, right? So maybe you're on a team, a football team, soccer team, and maybe your teammate's nervous about playing the big game. And they're really starting to let it eat at them, all right? So maybe what you could say to encourage them is, you've got this. I've seen how hard you practice. You're a great player. Don't worry about it. All right. It's giving them some encouragement that, oh my gosh, my friend just noticed that I'm a pretty good player. That helps me feel good. All right. So encouragement helps people feel confident and supported. The next one is speak kindly. All right. We all learn this, we know this, but sometimes in the heat of a moment of an argument or something, we forget that we should be using kind words no matter what. Right? So the words we choose actually can either build a person up or tear them down. And that's on us to decide how we use our words. So speaking kindly means saying things that are honest, but also respectful. So instead of yelling, hey, you're so annoying, and a sibling is bugging you, right? Or your parents are, telling you to keep cleaning your room, all right? Maybe you would want to say, hey, can we talk about what's bothering me? I'm a little upset right now. Okay, so kind words actually create a positive atmosphere. The next is practice empathy. Okay, and this is kind of similar to the whole understanding people's feelings, right? Empathy means putting yourself in someone else's shoes. You want to think about why, what they might be feeling, why. Okay, so if you have a friend that kind of maybe didn't quite, oops, I'm sorry, we have a question. Does somebody want to come off mic and ask the question?
I'm taking notes. May you go back a little, like back to R?
Oh yeah, you want to just, yeah, hold on a second.
Start over a little bit.
let me keep, this might take a while. Tell you what, can you take a screenshot of that? Do you have a camera? You can take a picture of that.
Um, sure.
Or do you have a, if you hit print screen on your computer, it'll take a little screenshot of of this screen for you.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, I'll wait until you're ready. Just give me the thumbs up and I'll move forward. This one. We're at empathy. Okay. All right. So yes, basically when it comes to empathy, it's much like being in touch with other people's feelings. It's helping us connect and avoid unnecessary conflict, right? Sometimes if you might have an example I put in this shot was if you have a friend that maybe forgot to invite you or didn't invite you somewhere and that hurt your feelings. Maybe instead of getting angry and saying something kind of mean behind their back or do the same thing, you just have to share your honest feelings with them and just say, maybe something isn't going very well at home. Is there something I need to know about? Things like that. All right. So one of the things that I want to touch base on is going back to the example of Paul, okay? Because Paul's story kind of went off the rails when it came to practicing empathy. He and his friends were really bad about that. They didn't put each other in each other's shoes, okay? And so as much as maybe Paul didn't like the language that was being used and the TV shows, as they were getting older in their, junior year, they're starting to argue with each other about their personality differences and their behaviors. And they didn't communicate, and the roommates most likely didn't really practice very good empathy to understand that Paul just had some honest feelings about it, but Paul probably didn't really communicate it in a way so that it wasn't threatening or anything like that. Okay, we'll go over that in a second here. But the next tenet is to establish boundaries. Okay. Respect isn't just about respecting other people. It's also about respecting yourself, right? And knowing where your boundaries are. Paul probably should have known, you know what? These friends aren't really my kind of people. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the kind of shows they're watching. I'm not a big fan of the language they're using, and I need to go find a different friend group that I feel more comfortable with. And Paul probably could have established those boundaries ahead of time to help him and his roommates communicate better. So setting boundaries means letting people know what's okay and what's not okay. And that's important to do. And that's probably hard for middle school students to start doing, right? I think some middle school students, they worry, oh, I can't tell my parents what I feel about this because that might be disrespectful. But it's important to share with your parents what's going on in your heart, right? That's how they can help you. So if you have a sibling who keeps interrupting, all right, you're trying to study and the sibling's bugging you, right? What could you say to politely establish boundaries? What could you say to your sibling instead of like, get out of here? What could you say instead? I think we have a lot of people that don't want to use the chat. All right. I need quiet time now. Okay, there you go. Somebody said, can I be alone, please? There you go. It's the exact same thing with the was in the example here. Just need some quiet time. Can we talk a little later? Right? There we go. All right, so boundaries, they show self-respect. It's important to respect your own boundaries. It's not just respecting other people's boundaries, but your own. All right. So again, in the story of Paul, he didn't establish those boundaries with his roommates. All right. He probably should have objected sooner. So what do you think Paul could have said to his roommates to establish boundaries for himself? Okay, he wasn't happy with the language they're using. He wasn't happy with the TV shows they were watching. What do you think he could have said to them to help that and establish boundaries for himself? If we can get some people to respond. How do you think you could say? Or you can come off mic if you'd like. Let's see. All right. Is it okay if you turn off the stuff and not talk like that while I'm around? Very good. Can we watch different shows? Let's take a look. All right. Yeah. Can we make an agreement on TV show schedules? Paul could have said, you know what, I'm just not into that kind of show. Maybe you could watch it while I'm at my class or whatever the case. They could come up with a schedule on when they could be watching their favorite shows. Or I'm not comfortable around that kind of language. Do you mind refraining while I'm around? Okay. It's basically letting them know I'm not okay with this. I don't feel comfortable around it. But by all means, if you want to talk like that, I would appreciate it if you could say those kind of words when I'm not around. Pretty easy, huh? Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Communicate openly. All right. This is very important. Good communication is key to strong relationships. A lot of married people kind of have a hard time with this after a while. They forget how to communicate. But it's about being honest and listening carefully. Okay. You putting those listening ears on. So if something's bothering you, it's important to talk calmly instead of bottling it up. That's what Paul did. He held it in. He's hoping it all go away. And actually that turns out to be worse for someone. All right. So it's important to express your feelings. Okay. And last one, trust is key. Trust is what holds relationships together, right? It's important to trust the people around you, but all it takes is it can be broken in just a second if you're not careful with that trust, right? So making sure you're keeping your promises and supporting each other builds that trust. Okay. So if Paul had practiced all the tenets that we just talked about, maybe he did all those things. Maybe he set his boundaries. He practiced empathy, all of that. And his roommate still didn't work with him. What do you think Paul could have done about that? Anybody have any guesses? At the end of the day, Paul probably should have found new friends. And that's that boundaries situation where you have to find your tribe, right? It's okay to walk away from people who aren't being respectful, as long as you're doing your best to be respectful, right? Okay, so there's always a friend group for everyone, guys. You just have to trust God, all right? He's got your back. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to wrap this up here with a verse from the Bible, Isaiah 43:2. It says, God will carry you through the storm. That's essentially what that verse is saying. And it's saying, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. Since you're precious and honored in my sight, and because I love you, I will give you in exchange for you nations in exchange for your life. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Okay. If you want to look at a different version, the message, the Bible message Bible, that's saying, don't be afraid. I've redeemed you. I've called your name. You are mine. When you're in over your head, I'll be there with you. When you're in rough waters, you will not go down. When you're between a rock and a hard place, it won't be a dead end for you. Because I am God, your personal God, your Savior. I paid a huge price for you. And that's how much you mean to me. That's how much I love you. And I'd sell off the whole world to get you back. Trade the creation just for you. That's what that verse essentially means. Okay? So don't be afraid. I'm with you. That's essentially what it means. So whether you're struggling with friends or parents or siblings, teammates, anybody, putting God first and trusting that he will be there for you is the first step towards having those strong relationships. So with that, that's the end of this presentation, guys. I'm glad you guys were able to join me and learn a few things. Class dismissed. I will talk to you guys another time. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.